So hello everybody. I just wanted to make a video here for chapter 1, an introductory video. Now, sometimes when I have to find time, I get up early in the morning and do this. So right now it's 5:30 in the morning, and you'll hear me. I have a slight cold. I'm sorry about that. And you'll hear me occasionally sipping a cup of coffee. I hope you don't mind, and you'll probably even see me in that little corner picking up a coffee cup. All right, so I just want to go over some items here on chapter 1. This is an introductory chapter here, and where it tells us what the roadmap we're going to go on. So we're going to look at financial markets, right? How they work, and we're going to talk about bonds, stocks, foreign exchange markets. And the foreign exchange markets are 24-hour-a-day markets, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They basically never sleep. And we'll look at how money, we'll look at banks and how investment companies and the like all work, and how money flows through the economy. All right, so we're going to look at the links among monetary policy, the business cycle, and economic variables. And monetary policy has become a big issue these days with all the changes that were made, quantitative easing that went on in 2008, the major crash, and how the Fed had to come in and change its policy and brought interest rates down to zero. Okay, so what I'm going to do, there's about 35 slides in here, but if the video gets too long, I'll cut it. I'll stop at about 15, and then I'll make a part 2. All right, so we'll look at other things, right? And basically, financial markets, right? Money is transferred from people who have an excess of it to people who are in need of funds. In other words, savers and loaners, right? And that's how it works. And people buy stocks and people sell stocks. People who have money will buy, and people who I guess need the money or take an investment will sell. I got a couple $1 million under advisement, so I'll show you my account at one point during the semester. Okay, so the bond market is basically a market where a bond is, we're going to use different words. A bond is the same as debt, and companies lend money, companies borrow money from people so they can, finance some things they want to do in the company. They want to make a new product or they want to invest. But the important thing about a bond market is that when you loan them the money, you have no say, right? When you're a shareholder, you can vote and you can have, you're a part owner of the company. Bondholder, you're nothing, right? You're just they make interest payments to you, otherwise known as coupon payments. Here, and you can see interest payments, right? And that's basically the cost of borrowing money from you. So that's how that goes. And a security, also security could be, a bond, or it could be, that's a generic term, right? Security, or it could be a stock share. Okay. Now bonds could either be corporate. There's many different types of bonds, right? Corporate. And there is, government bonds, and government bonds are normally like T-bills and known as risk-free, right? Because they're always going to pay you. Well, you hope they all. Okay, so here's here's how interest rates looked on selected bonds, and you can see when I was 25 years old, there was a huge recession. A huge inflation. And you could see the price of all the bonds were up in the air. My mortgage was like 15%. So it wasn't a fun time for me. It was a very hard time for me. I was, kind of just starting out in life. And you could see over here is the when the Great Recession hit, everything went to zero. The Fed dropped everything to zero. All right, so as I said, the common stock is a share of ownership in a company, which is different than bonds. Okay, so you can actually vote, and technically, now you don't always get a dividend, right? Dividend is kind of like a little reward for buying the share, some companies like Google don't pay a dividend. They reinvest the dividend in the company. So, you know, and so basically, one share is like a claim on earnings and assets of the corporation. If you remember Enron took a hit. Probably when you were young and stuff. So here's the infamous Dow Jones Industrial Average. And if you don't know what the Dow Jones Industrial Average is, it's an index on 30 stocks, and they periodically will change the stocks in the market. And here was the Great Recession, right? And I guess if you look at now, there's probably going to be a dip now. Right? It's really come down. We've had a lot of problems lately, as you know. If you're following the Dow like I do, you're having a little nervous breakdown. I guess I lost about $100,000 in the last couple of a month or so. All right, so banks are basically called financial intermediaries, and they borrow money from people who are saving, and in turn make loans to people who need funds. Now, if you put money in a savings account, here's the problem we're having now. You put money in a bank, you're only going to get 0.1%, so inflation's eating that away. And if you have any comments, feel free to always email me. And then if you put it in the stock market, as you can see, we're really taking a hit, so you're losing there. And really the only place I guess you can go is the bond market. So, you know, so that's that. So there's a lot of issues. But I'm in a mutual fund. I'm in a retirement fund. I'm in a... You know, I got individual stocks I purchase, and some have really gone down. So I invest like Warren Buffett. I invest for the long run. All right, so financial innovation. As you know, everything has gone everything could be done online. You know, there's online brokers, and there's a place in sub-Saharan Africa now where they actually trade money and have their own like banking system on their phone because it's safe. So so here is what I'm talking about in '08, and maybe now a little bit. There's a lot of financial crises going on, right? Occasionally, and they're basically disruptions in the financial markets. Right now, there's a lot of turmoil in the world with Brexit, you know, in England. And you know, the government shutting down here, and there's a lot of turmoil right now, and it's affecting the financial markets. All right, so the word here that's important is recession, right? You can clearly see here. During the recession, the Great Recession '08, there was like a 10% unemployment, and then when there's an expansion, right, interest rates will go up and there'll be a call for jobs. The only problem is a lot of times now people are saying, well, there's call for jobs, but they're not high-paying jobs. And if they are high-paying jobs, they're not hiring people who were laid off. So there's a lot of turmoil also now with jobs in this country about who's going to get hired for what, and if you're not properly skilled, you know, you're going to you have to work 2 low-paying jobs. So monetary policy, all right, the monetary policy of the Fed kind of tries to tie the money supply changes to basically to aggregate how much the activity in the economy is. If the economy is overheating, what they're going to do is they're going to basically raise interest rates. All right, so there's a couple terms here, and the one that's important is this aggregate price level. All right, so a continual price rise in the price level is called inflation. We don't like inflation, right? And inflation's not good. So the Fed basically is trying to raise interest rates now to cool inflation. But on the other hand, as they raise it, the stock market is getting nervous and the stock market is dropping. So there's a double-edged sword there. All right, so here's here's money growth, right? The money growth rate, you know, the percent annual rate. And these lines here, see these vertical lines? I guess they're like greenish, light greenish. These are periods of recessions, right? These are like a recession here. So you can clearly see here the 08 when the money dropped here really quick, right? The growth, there was no annual growth rate. So during recessions, you can see the money like bangs off. See, boom, falls off a cliff here. So you can see here, what's interesting is as the price level goes up, the aggregate price level, it's it goes up with money supply, right? So as the money supply goes up, basically prices go up. So money going up is tied to inflation here. You can see that. And I guess they're showing here inflation rates around the world. I guess that's Russia, Turkey. And I guess you can kind of see we're pretty fortunate. Our average inflation rate, right, has been pretty low overall right here. I guess this is us right here. About 2%, right? What's interesting, let me go back a minute to that slide. They give you a nice, you can get these links and open this up to get further information on this. You can go to the St. Louis Fed here. There's 12 banks, 12 Fed banks, and they all have nice websites with a lot of educational information. All right, so interest rates are the price of money. All right, so prior to 1980, the rate of money growth and the interest rate on long-term Treasury bonds was closely tied, right? So there was a correlation between them. So you can kind of see here, here's interest rates and here's money growth, right? And they're kind of like going up, and then here they kind of fall off a cliff a little bit, so they're not correlated as much. And again, here's the Fed connection. If you want to get further info, these are great slides. All right, so there's two terms here that some people often confuse, right? Monetary policy is the management of the money supply and interest rates, and it's conducted by the Federal Reserve System. The main branch, which is in Washington, and that's a federal institution. The 12 banks are not part of the federal government. They're separate, and they're basically like companies. So it's an interesting connection. You have the Fed in Washington, which is a part of the federal government, and then you have the 12 banks, which are independent. And then you have fiscal policy, which is, you see going on now with Trump and Congress about spending and taxation, and should we spend on the wall, and how much budget deficit. And, the budget deficits are over $21 trillion. So it's getting worse and worse, and eventually they always say something's got to be done, and they've been saying that for years. Okay, so I'm going to stop here because this video is about 15 minutes now, and they get large. And I will continue, and I'll do a part 2 on this. I'm up to slide 20. Alrighty. Talk to everybody later. Enjoy your day.